Do you remember those episodes where a child character who is Steven's age is just trying to be serious after a serious event, all the while they're not fully ready to be mature? I have to be real with you, judging of how Steven's development was like towards the last episode of this season, along with the first episodes of season 2, this really feels like that Steven is way ahead, but not ready when it comes to being ahead. Serious Steven begins with Steven getting up, realizing that there was a huge carnage at Funland when it comes to the teacups that were connected to a ride, which leads to Steven being a little paranoid because of the mistake that he did. When it comes to the mission he and the Crystal Gems are doing, it's mainly inside of an ancient gem maze. Steven pairs up with Garnet because Garnet can easily take care of Steven. However, Steven is trying to prove himself to take the situation seriously by being serious Steven, but he makes mistakes. And in all honesty, it's literally what people would expect when it comes to a child character who makes these mistakes. This episode is mainly the highlight of the gem maze, which for me personally, it made me appreciate the effort after rewatching this episode. Like, my binge watch experience was memorable, but at the same time, I don't remember a lot. I'm just gonna say that even when COVID locked me inside of my house, it's still impossible to remember these moments of how impressive they were. Maybe it's probably because in the later seasons it made me appreciate the animation and the characters a lot more, to the point that I just didn't got back to season 1. So rewatching this episode, there was a lot of effort and tons of contributions when it comes to the gem maze. Because I have to tell you, the gem maze, I really like the gem maze. Besides, looking back at this episode, I understand that it wasn't supposed to be humorous when it comes to Steven being afraid, since it was supposed to take it seriously, but if I had the knowledge that watching these episodes before watching the rest was mainly on the fact that we're supposed to see this mainly for comedy when it comes to Steven, this show was completely different in 2013 and the beginning of 2014. Let's just say that with this type of maze not being shown, since that Garnet carried Steven through this obstacle, it made me disappointed during my rewatch, I'm not kidding, but it didn't take long for me to understand the meaning of it all, since we get to see the flashback centering around Steven, the Crystal Gems, and Funland. Steven was riding with Garnet, while Amethyst was riding with Pearl, which Pearl doesn't understand the meaning of this ride, and Steven got so sick that he immediately jumped off of the teacup. However, he landed on Mr. Smiley, which results the lever to be broken, which causes the teacup ride to go on full speed, crashing into buildings in Funland, which results Mr. Smiley banning Steven from all the rides. Which, in all honesty, Mr. Smiley, despite having a point on preventing anything like that to happen again, has the creepiest smile. I'm gonna be real with you, when I hear people criticize this character, I'm just gonna be real with you, he probably took his job way too seriously on being Mr. Smiley. I know that's not really his name, since that he probably has an actual name, or if maybe that isn't the case, but for me personally, I'm not going to tackle a lot, and if I really had the chance to talk about Mr. Smiley's character, it will probably be at a time where I'm mostly curious and mostly invested when it comes to how Beach City residents just isn't everyone else's cup of tea. No pun intended. It's revealed that they're in a death trap because no matter which location they go into, they always go back to the center of the gem maze. But this gave Steven an idea, since that he has flashbacks centering around the teacup ride, and this leads to Garnet smashing the ground, which leads to them going through a circle with flying obstacles, and they figure out their objective. The gem from the bottom was rotating the mazes constantly, mainly the rooms, which results Steven to be thrown down thanks to Garnet and pull the gem out of it, which causes the ancient gem maze to collapse. To tell you the truth, guys, I may have not seen movies that has mazes that makes you go through a room but only go back to the center, but I'm gonna be real with you. I think that the inspiration that this episode took from those movies is mainly on just adjusting Steven's character on being serious and considering that he ended up becoming the same character as he was in previous episodes after this. This episode aged awkwardly, mainly the fact that it's a different type of seriousness when it comes to the other arcs later on. But I'm gonna be real with you, I found this episode really enjoyable. For an episode that centers around a character who is a child that is trying to take things seriously, I guess the environment all around them is literally the type of environment that is made for the Crystal Gems, which really explains onto why they spend time without Steven and mostly focusing on the missions that's really important. Believe me, you can say all you want that the gems are neglectful, but they're not that type of neglectfulness in comparison to other cartoon parents. Mainly Timmy Turner's parents, and even though Rita and Lin So are neglected from the Loud House, but at the same time, I can't imagine how their lives would have been like if they were doing everything that what the Crystal Gems did and still have 11 children. Let me just say this for a fact that if the Crystal Gems were taking care of multiple children, they will probably have a difficult time raising all of them, and they're probably thankful that Rose only turned one baby into multiple. Let's be real for a second and just hope that the inspiration that this show had was thankful it was before the Loud House. Then again, I'm overthinking it a little bit too much. I'm giving this episode a 7.75 out of 10.